What intrigued me about Jack London and what made me decide to write about him was a conversation I had in a bar one evening with a friend of mine about a dozen years ago, where he told me about John Barleycorn, this book that Jack had written that he insisted I had to read. And I said, well, I've read Jack London. I read Call of the Wild and White Fang. I'm done with Jack London. And he said, no, there's so much more to this guy than you could possibly imagine. He was born in incredible poverty in Oakland. He went to the Yukon. He traveled to Japan on seal hunting expeditions. He rafted down the Mississippi. He was jailed for vagrancy in Erie, Pennsylvania. He was a self-taught writer. He traveled the country. He became a railroad hobo, and he did all that before he turned 21, and then he became one of our greatest writers. I was worried when I started writing the book because the scope of the book is so large and Jack is such a well-known writer that I figured people would have the long knives out for me and be ready to tell me that I don't know Jack. But I did a tremendous amount of research, and I figured what I was doing was creating a character named Jack London, a fictional character who happened to share a lot of common biographical traits with a real person named Jack London. So once I was able to create my fictional character, I was able to put him in a world that ultimately is my own. There's a running theme in the book of betrayal. Jack is betrayed early on, or thinks he's betrayed early on, by Hobart Bosworth, who's a real filmmaker from Hollywood history. And then there are various betrayals in his marriage with Charmian London on both sides. Betrayal is an interesting thing to write about because it's so personal and it's such great drama that it really does lend itself to fiction. I think the one thing I'd like readers to take away from this book is that ultimately I'd like for them to have a good time reading it. I mean, I think it's a great adventure story as well as a great romance and a great story about a man who was passionate about everything he did, not just writing, but the way he lived and the way he really seized the moment at every opportunity to explore new things. And ultimately, I think that's what the real adventure of this story is. And I'd like people to come away from that really feeling that even though they haven't read Jack in a long time, or may never have read Jack, or are only familiar with him through a movie or a classic comics version, that this really was a great American life.